Have you ever dreamed of writing a book, but felt a little overwhelmed by the idea of writing an entire book? I know I did, but with the advent of apps like ChatGPT, it has become easier than ever to write an entire book in no time. And I would know because I wrote an entire ebook by myself with the help of ChatGPT without any previous writing experience. And today I will show you how you can do it too. We'll explore book-related capabilities of ChatGPT, like researching or writing text that is as long as you want it to be.
What?
That's right, you heard me. Infinite length is possible. You just need to change your approach. But that's not all. ChatGPT can also help you rewrite text and get you from draft to polished result in no time. And last but not least, I will be answering the question,
Let me ask you a question.
Igor, did you use AI to write your book?
and not just that, I will also show you my exact process. So if you want to learn how to write an ebook on any topic from a guy that successfully did it, this is the video for you. All I ask for you is to hit that like button and subscribe. With that being said, let's talk ebooks. So before you use this to start writing, you should probably know a little bit about the topic. So here's a prompt that you might already know, but I'll show you a new twist to it. Let's say we're writing a book about the printing press, and here we'll simply summarize the Wikipedia article, all right? And you're gonna run into these error messages because the text is too long. This is also a problem in GPT-4 through the browser. Once the API fully releases and you take that route, you will be able to feed it more text. But for now, we're stuck with the same length limitations for both GPT 3.5 and GPT 4. So the simplest workaround here is simply copying a part of the text, summarizing that, and then rerunning the prompt for the second half of the text. Copy, paste, copy, paste. Now we have two summaries, but now I want to show you one of the most basic, but also one of my favorite prompts. Now summarize all the summaries you created above in a bullet point list. And this is just the best, so consumable. And you might be asking yourself,
Why didn't I ask it for a bullet point list right away?
and that is because with bullet point list, it makes it a little shorter. And I wanted to go into a little more detail here. So once I create the bullet point list, it has more details to gather information from. And what we'll be doing here today is we'll keep working inside of this thread. Because as you might know, ChatGPT remembers the previous parts of the conversation. So if I ran 20 more summaries in here, it would remember and it would help us in our next prompt, which is all about achieving infinite length. But before that, let me show how to get even more information for your ebook in no time. And that is by using today's sponsor, Mindgrasp. Now let's have some GPT-4 powered fun with this partnership by using the following prompt to tell you about the sponsor. Rewrite the sponsor description in an exaggerated manner in the context of my YouTube video that teaches AI powered ebook writing. And then I copy pasted the details. And this is the exaggerated version I got out of GPT-4. Do you dream of mastering any topic at breakneck speed? Look no further than Mindgrasp, the savior of knowledge seekers everywhere. We're all drowning in an avalanche of content. Videos, articles, books, passages. And there's never enough time to scale this mountain of information. Behold, Mindgrasp, the meteoric AI tool, crafted by brilliant students, adored by professionals, and revered by lifelong learners of all ages. Oh man, this exaggerated style is kind of great. Let's keep going. Conceived in 2021, Mindgrasp is an all-devouring AI beast capable of ingesting any PDF, PowerPoint, video, link, article, or file. Harnessing multiple language models, it distills your information into ultra-precise, action-packed notes and mind-blowing, all-encompassing summaries. And that's not all. After Mindgrasp has devoured your source material, it unleashes its Ask a Question superpower to answer any contextual questions. Context is king, and Mindgrasp wears the crown. Whether you're tackling an analytics report for work or slogging through a textbook reading for school, put Mindgrasp to the test yourself and watch your learning and information absorption capabilities rocket to unprecedented heights. Don't miss out. Use the code AIadvantage25 for an astonishing 25% off today and join the AI-powered ebook writing revolution. All right, that was kind of fun. But on a more serious note, it's a good tool to incorporate into your research. But with all that being said, let's now have a look at how to achieve infinite length in your outputs. Now, I know you're familiar with this problem because everyone runs into it. Because when I go in here and say, write me a 30,000 word book on the printing press, it will simply stop at chapter 4. And while you can follow up with keep going, you will never achieve 30,000 words like this. Look, if I copy the entire text it wrote and post it into Word, that's 1,200 words. So here's how to get around it. Instead of saying write me a 30,000 word book, we'll say write me an outline for a 30,000 word book. There you go, that's a solid outline right there. For these outlines, I found GPT-4 to be slightly better as the numbering is more consistent. In ChatGPT, you sometimes have to follow up with now number these bullet points. No big deal really, just something to be aware of. And what you can do now is first of all, you can edit these points by simply saying replace 7.d with my new chapter title. And as you can see, 7.d, printing and the growth of global commerce, is now printing and economies of scale. Exactly what I asked it for. And once I'm happy with the outline here, all I need to do is go through and say, write me 1a. Just make sure to use the same numbering that it used in the outline. And all I need to do is hit enter and it's writing my introduction. Next up, I'll say, write me 1b. You can already see where this is going. If I open up a Word document here, I can simply copy paste my different chapters with the written out text in here, and I can start piecing together my book like this. And you can always follow up with try again, but make it twice as long if this text was not long enough for you. And there you go. With these techniques, you should be able to write books in whatever length you desire. So let's just copy the outline prompt and go into the research thread that we looked at the beginning of the video where it summarized the Wikipedia article. Now you simply add a new part to the prompt, which says, including the summaries that you created above. And you're going to get different outlines here depending on what research you did above. Now, considering this was Wikipedia, it's going to be pretty generic and similar to what it would have come up with anyway. But I think you see my point here. If you first summarize 10 articles from your very own blog and then write an ebook outline considering those articles, your results will be way more custom than if you simply ask it for an outline without feeding it any data before. And again, if it gets stuck, you can always say continue or keep going. So look, with all this relatively basic writing, I found GPT-4 to perform very similar to GPT-3.5, as the prompts we're using here are well crafted. If you're just freestyling your prompts, you might find GPT-4 to be better regularly. But generally speaking, especially if you're copying the prompts from this video's description, in this use case, the outputs of the two models are going to be very similar. Where GPT-4 really shines is long, complex prompts, where you really push it to its limits. But with all that being said, if you have access to GPT-4 and it works at the moment, in the case of most writing tasks, except for maybe writing fantasy, but that's a topic for a different video, there is no real reason to use GPT 3.5. I personally would use it for every prompt in this video, but again, I think it's important to highlight where the differences lie and to highlight the prompts where it really matters and the ones where it really doesn't. Okay, now let's talk about the workflow I used for my ebook. So if you're not familiar, in late December, I came out with my ChatGPT cheat sheet, which is essentially not a typical ebook. It's over 100 ChatGPT prompt formulas with 400 use cases for them. So the core of the book is more like a cheat sheet than an ebook, hence the name. And that part can't really be generated with ChatGPT, as you first need to find the use cases in order to create the formula from them. And yes, as I showed you in a recent video, you can then easily go from the formula to the examples. But finding the best prompts and the variations of them that you like to use is really just a lot of trial and error. But let's quickly talk about the introduction of the book, which is very ebook-like. Here's what I did for that part as a non-writer. First, I went ahead and I drafted out my own ideas. And just to make things easier on myself, I usually write in a way simpler language than I would even talk. So for the sake of this example, let's say I was writing the 2 pages that focus on how to apply your own style to ChatGPT. And my first step is always just brain dumping in a very simplified form into a notes app like Notion, but for this quick demo, we'll just do it right here. So this is what I came up with. Again, very simplified. This is not a final result, just a first draft. ChatGPT is great, but by default, the style is pretty generic. In many cases, you will want to apply your own style. So how do we teach it? Here's my workflow. So now it's time to develop this. Rewrite this in a friendly and conversational style while including every piece of information. And as per usual, you'll find all the prompt formulas in the description below. By the way, we did this for all previous videos too. It's just too convenient. So if you run this, it's actually gonna write a proper text instead of just this bullet point type brain dump. And here's my pro tip when it comes to styles after using this for every single day since 3 months. Here's 3 amazing styles to get you started, all right? And each one of these achieves something very different. So as you can see by this example, Bukowski has this very real tone. His style cuts through all the BS and talks right to your soul. If you use Jimmy Kimmel, it's gonna be very conversational, lighthearted, commercial, and something that will appeal to a very wide audience. If you say in the style of Joe Rogan, it's just gonna be very down to earth and human. When applying styles to text like this, it really doesn't matter if you're using GPT 3.5 or GPT-4. All right, let's move on. But for me personally, I always like to get the conversational style, and then I take the rewritten thing in the style that I like and I post it into something like Notion. And what I do for text that I really care about is I take some of these other versions and I post them in here too. And here comes the last part of my workflow, and you might not believe it, but I actually go through and then I write it myself based on these different outputs. So maybe starting with well is not the right thing for my ebook, right? But I really like, let's talk about ChatGPT. So I take that little part and then add my own little twist to it. And And right there, after 2 minutes of extra work, I came up with a paragraph that I would call my very own. And again, I always stated that I use AI to help myself, but it's never the final output. I don't just copy paste this stuff. I use it as the middle part that writes out all the text and does the heavy lifting. Then I start editing and writing myself. And that's how I wrote/generated the first few chapters of my ebook. Same process for the weekly newsletter, by the way, although now I started involving other people to help me co-write. So now it's not just me plus ChatGPT, but one more brain that looks over the whole thing and makes it even better. But what all these cases have in common is that you need the right prompts to work with ChatGPT. And as you might know, that's what this channel is all about. But I have a big announcement to make right here for the very first time. My very own ChatGPT course. And I could not be more excited about this. I've been working on this for over 2 months now, and I'm aiming to make this the best resource on ChatGPT on all of the internet. Seriously. Because if you enjoyed this video, that course is going to be the same thing, just 50 times more content, and all of it in a structured way that holds your hand from zero to advanced prompt engineer. But if you want even more writing tips like this for free right now, then check out this video that teaches you some advanced techniques to writing with ChatGPT. Pretty much anybody can find a new technique in this vid, and I'll see you soon.